So I was sitting in church the other day, today, to be fair, and I was just writing down some of the thoughts that I had, and along with it, stuff that I've seen in the news, either recently or lately or whatever. So, if you don't know what the Book of Mormon is, and if you're a kind of Christian who just thinks that Mormons are heretics, that's fine. I don't really care, but it's still a good book to live by. And it starts out with a history of a family of Jews who flee Jerusalem just before it is destroyed and the Jews are taken into captivity by the Babylonians. So it starts out with a man called Lehi, who is called to be a prophet and cry repentance unto the people of Jerusalem, and his son Nephi later becomes a prophet after him, but is his youngest or second youngest son, I don't know, at the time, and he helps guide the family to a place called Bountiful, which is somewhere in, I don't know, Yemen or Saudi Arabia or whatever, and then they eventually build a ship and they sail to the Americas. So this part of the Book of Mormon, I think, is very serious and overlooked because it's the only part that is not in the Americas, if you exclude either. But anyways, so in the first chapter we read in 1 Nephi chapter 1 verses 19 through 20, the Jews did mock him because of the things which he testified of them. For he truly testified of their wickedness and their abominations. When the Jews had heard these things, they were angry with him, yea, even as with the prophets of old, whom they had cast out, and stoned, and slain. And they also sought his life, that they might take it away. Now, personally, I've always disliked the word adversary, because it's too lighthearted. People don't take it seriously. It's like calling Satan he who must not be named. Words like sodomite, Lucifer, Satan, the devil, those have connotation. People recognize those, and it makes people more aware of the evils and atrocities that are being committed today in the sight of God. But anyways, because if you're completely devoid of morality, then you can't be without sin. And that's what the sodomite wants. They don't want to be reminded of, morality, and God, and judgment. They just want to be ignorant, because ignorant is bliss, just as it's often been said. But, looking back about how the verse talks about how the Jews tried to cast out Lehi just as the prophets of old before him. And I think that's significant because the Jews in the same days of the prophets did the same things the sodomites and reprobates of the LGBT community are doing today. They cast out criticism and judgment because they want to remain devoid of morality. Then they form a safe space to commit all kinds of heinous sin. They conjure up terms like bigot, Puritan, homophobe, Nazi, Bible pusher, Bible thumper. And I wouldn't be surprised if these kinds of terms were also used against Lehi to mock him, as well as the prophets before him. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if sodomy was among the sins being committed by the Jews before their inevitable destruction and captivity into Babylon. In fact, I remember reading an article published in Haaretz titled Judaism and Homosexuality, A Brief History. In the article, it talks about how despite sodomy and whoredom being banned in the book of Deuteronomy, sodomite behavior was tolerated not only throughout the kingdom of Judah, but on temple grounds itself. In 1 Kings 14, verses 23 to 24, we read, And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they had committed above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every hill and under every green tree. And there were also sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. Why didn't the Lord ever choose an easier people to work with? Well, that's pretty self-explanatory by the name Israel. These people struggled with God. And throughout history, there were people that were obviously worse than them, as we know from Sodom and Gomorrah. But there were people that obviously could have been better. You know, the Persians, Zoroastrians. But if people were always and always and always righteous, we wouldn't have learned anything from the Bible. And so it's the mistake after mistake after mistake of the children of Israel. Do we learn all the important lessons the Lord wanted us to learn? Anyways, the Harrod's article continues to say that these sodomites served as secret prostitutes in the temple and administered various acts amongst patrons as a form of deity worship. Idolatry and paganism go hand in hand with sodomy. These people violated holy grounds with their sinful behavior. And the sad thing is, our world is on the exact same track to do the same thing. It used to be that in Utah and California, those states had amendments in their constitutions that outlawed gay marriage. But now homosexuals are being lawfully wedded just a few blocks away from the Salt Lake Temple. And every waking day, they're trying to get closer and closer. For those of you who don't know, Mormons are a temple-building people just like Jews. What they do is they have churches where they congregate, but they also have temples where they perform sacred ordinances, just like the Jews did back in their day. But, problem is, the sodomite never keeps to himself. He always and always tries to push through the public sphere and tries to violate sacred and holy places, which is why sodomites demand that churches like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church, and the Mormon Church give in to their demand to wed gays in their temples. And obviously they're not going to stand for that, but they're trying every day. And my biggest fear is that it could happen someday. Hopefully, I hope that if God views the Mormons as his true church, he will protect us, or we will try and remain vigilant and obedient to his commandments. But I remember a few years ago, there was a girl in my Sunday school class who broke down in tears, saying that she had no impetus to share the gospel with any of her friends, because it meant that one of her friends could truly never be happy, because the church would never allow her friend and her friend's girlfriend to be married in the temple. It's funny, I revisited my old congregation a few weeks ago, only to discover the girl that broke down in tears in Sunday school is now an openly lesbian. Now, this didn't come as much of a shock to me, since she was always on her Kindle during Sunday school. Hashtag Tumblr makes you gay. But more importantly, is again, I feel that every day the sodomites are advancing closer and closer until eventually they're going to reach the gates of Temple Square. The only way in which the church, and this can apply to any church, can protect itself is if its members remain vigilant in adhering to the commandments and teachings of the prophets and apostles and the gospel of Jesus Christ. Reading further in Nephi, in verse 20, in the first chapter of 1 Nephi, we read, "But behold, I, Nephi, will show unto you that the tender mercies of the Lord are over all those whom he hath chosen, because of their faith, to make them mighty even unto the power of deliverance. The Lord will bless and neither forsake those who repent and obey his commandments. Life on earth is temporary. Heaven and hell, they're for eternity. So why should we waste our time giving in to the sins and sinners of the world? What more could we possibly gain from doing so in this life that we can, in an eternity, have in heaven? How can we call ourselves followers of Christ when we support people in such self-destructive behavior and habits, rather than showing them true love, which is to set them back on the straight and narrow path that is to the kingdom of heaven? It's sad because I see it in my own church. The LDS church, either it was last year or the year before, just before Thanksgiving, released a proclamation or a new policy in the church that they were not going to baptize, and baptism basically makes you a member of the church. They were not going to baptize any of the children of gay couples. And this was solely for the reason that they did not want their lives to be completely torn between what is preached in the name of God versus the reprobate behavior they see in their own home. So this wasn't necessarily excluding gays, because you could be gay per se and still be a member of the church, but you have to promise that you will not act on your behavior and you will try to strive towards living a righteous and virtuous life. Now, these children can still attend the church. They just can't be baptized until they are 18, until they are independent of that sodomite behavior, and they can finally declare themselves free and finally purge the wrong parts of their life and finally get back what was taken from them. And that is hopefully one day a traditional relationship in which they can set an example for their children. Now, the leaders of the church, when they came out with this policy, they knew that even though they weren't fully excluding anybody with this policy, it was going to receive immense negative media backlash. But they didn't care, because they knew it was the right thing to do morally. And they don't care about the opinions of the sodomite and the sinner, because they're just showing tough love. Most people usually want what is not what's right for them. Which is why the natural man is an enemy to God. The natural man is a homophile and a sodomite. It is only through resisting temptation can we become fully obedient to the commandments laid out in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, we should love all of those. But what is love? Love is not just saying love is love and then letting centuries of societal foundations, which is marriage, be completely shattered in the name of tolerance. No. Love is harsh. Sometimes it's telling somebody who you care about that their behavior is self-destructive and that you don't want to see them in a worse state than they already are, even if that goes against what they may feel they truly want. The Lord said that you shall not hate the children of your fellow brethren, but we must show love one to another. So if you have somebody who's gay that's either a coworker or in your family, show them the respect that they do, either as, as the part of they are of the greater whole in which they share in common with you. But if they ever mention their kind of behavior to you, show them the love they deserve, because they are crying out in help. It's a matter of acting out. Self-destructive behavior is nearly irreversible, because eventually they will hit rock bottom. They will either stay there forever, or they will try to look for a way out. And you, as a follower of Christ, have a duty to help thy fellow man. Even if it may mean that that person eventually will reject you forever. Because it doesn't matter, even if they are your family. If they refuse to change their behavior, you need to purge them from your life. You cannot allow that toxicity to be in your life. You need to focus on what's right. And if they won't focus what's right for you, then they truly don't love you. But what we can truly show to those who we do show or want to show love to is that even when they reject us for not for who we are, but when they reject us for trying to help them, they will eventually see their regrets and their own mistake eventually later on in life. Even if it's so far towards the end, they will eventually realize what they have lost and what they have missed out on life. And that will come in a day of reckoning. And so it won't matter whether or not you were the most tolerant person, because at the end of the day, what matters is, did you adhere? Did you try to at least bring one soul unto Christ? Because in the end game is, if you were considered the most bigoted, homophobic person, it doesn't matter. Because a lifetime of homophobia is an eternity in heaven. And a lifetime of sodomy is an eternity in hell. So you choose what you value more, a lifetime or an eternity. Because it doesn't matter which one you value more in the end, because ultimately God decides what becomes your eternity. And so that's why I say, don't be afraid of what you see going on in the world today. Just live through it. God will not forsake those who are righteous and adhere to his commandments. He has an elect, and that elect is few. For many are called, but few are chosen. Because path to the kingdom of heaven is both straight and narrow. those are my thoughts for now. I'll be sure to share some more throughout the upcoming season. But for now on, Western Pyre signing out.